All right, well, first of all, thanks. It looks like we have a pretty good attendance here. But I just want to make sure. Are we waiting for anybody?
We have everybody, don't we? Or no?
I think we might have the full committee. If you guys just want to go around, that would be helpful, I think. Let me see. Well, we have Wendy's. I have Wendy. I have Joe, Pete, Jenny, Cheryl, Ted, Linda, me, and Tom. So there's 9 of us. So it looks like we have a full committee. So that's good. So I'm just going to start with our agenda. And the first thing on our agenda is to approve our meeting minutes, which were from May 16th. That was the last time we had met prior. So did everyone get the May meeting minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
All right. So those, Julia, we can distribute those to everybody at that at the next meeting. So as everybody knows, I will be stepping down. This would be my last meeting. And the most important thing as we go ahead will be a reorder of the committee officers. So I just want to let everybody know a little bit. The open seat now will be appointed by Kathleen, will be joining the board again.
Yay.
So that she was appointed from the select board last night. So that's good news. And Cheryl has been officially the designee from the planning board. So the positions now are locked and this is the committee going forward. But we do need a reorder of committee officers. And so I would like to put forth the slate of Jenny remaining as vice chair, Pete remaining as treasurer, and Tom becoming the new chair. And I just wanted to put that out there for discussion amongst the committee. But I think Tom would be a great new chair and to lead the group. So I just want to put it out there for the committee. And of course, Jenny and Pete have done an excellent job in their roles. And as much as we tried to convince Jenny to become the chair, she wasn't biting on that. So, but anyway, so.
Not this year. Anyway.
There you go. Rob, this is
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah.
I have no issues with any of the people that you're speaking about, but should we not wait and do this when the new members are part of the committee?
Well, the only person who, there's 8 people now, and Kathleen isn't on the committee. I also just want a smooth transition. We have a lot of work going as we go forward. So it's also just me stepping down, to fill in that gap of having a chair, I think is important. So if there was a lot of us leaving, I think it would be a big deal. But personally, I don't think I think it's just better for transition that if we set this in place, I think it's important to.
And just for well, everybody's sake, I have no issue at all with the slate as proposed by Rob Lavash. So.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, nor do I. It's just, something I wanted to address. If everybody's comfortable with it, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I think you need a motion, right, Rob?
Yes.
I'm happy to make the motion for the slate as proposed for the new officers for the, I guess, FY24 year.
Second.
Okay. All right, Pete.
you nominated Tom. Has he agreed to take the position?
He has.
All
He has.
right.
He has. He
Yes.
has.
Good
So
point, Pete. Good point.
no. So we did have a discussion about this
Good.
previously, and obviously we had a little bit of discussion, and he was comfortable with doing it.
Fantastic.
And so that's the
I tried to talk Jenny into it as well, but
yeah. we tried to talk Jenny
also
into it.
also failed.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I told Rob, and I say this with all sincerity, that he's made this position, whoever sits in the chair position for the next year, a lot easier because of the groundwork he has laid to set up our systems and set up a process and just really led us very capably, more than capably, over the last year. So I know it'll be an increase in the amount of work and time, but it's a lot less intimidating than it would have been without Rob's leadership. So I want to thank him for that.
Thank you. And I also had mentioned at our last meeting that, I'm still a Milton resident down here. I do have a lot of the, probably files or anything, any time you guys have questions or anything, I'm here. I'm not going to be, I said, I'm totally available by phone or anything. I'm available to make a smooth transition as we go forward as well. But there is, that's why I wanted to have this meeting. I think it's important as we go forward. There is a lot of work on this committee's plate as we go forward, but it's basically going to be a lot of meetings and such. So we'll get into that in a second. I wanted to, so now we've gone through the first kind of 5 points. Oh, did we officially, by the way, no, I don't think we did, because I think Pete had interrupted. So can we, I know that there was a motion on the floor, Jenny, to approve that slate. Is there a second for that?
Yes.
I'll second. This is Wendy.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so we now have our official officers that going forward. And so that's good. And so the next point on our agenda is the grant agreement. So Kathleen sent us a draft of the grant agreements, which Kathleen, I noted that there was 10 that you sent. I think we're missing the pickleballers agreement that I noted. And then I did notice, and I just only looked through them quickly, the garden club might have been like copied from another one or something. So you might want to check that one. But I think in any case, everyone probably should get that. So Julia, if you could send the grant agreements out to the committee so that everyone can kind of just look at it, and maybe for the next, I don't know what's the timing on that. When do we need the grant agreements to go out? Probably
Oh, I
sooner
see
than
what
later.
happened there. Yeah. I have this new computer and stuff gets saved in some other place where I can't find it. And so, yeah, I can see the Garden Club one is the wrong version, because there's a right version someplace else.
Yeah.
So I'll see what happened. And I did the pickleball one. I'm looking for that now.
Okay. So I think it would be good just to, I only looked through them quickly. I didn't go through it like in detail. But I think it's always helpful to have eyes on it. And then I told Nick too, that if town council or whatever needs to look at it, then they can look at it. And then I think we need to get it out, but I think we need to get it out soon. And so we'll look at when the next meetings will be scheduled soon in a second. But the next,
Can I just ask you or Kathleen, so these grant agreements, have these been sorry,
No,
have these
they've
been
not gone
drafted?
anywhere.
So
they've not
they've been basically drafted by Kathleen, but not in discussion with the recipients as a-
Absolutely not.
Okay, great.
yeah,
Okay.
and
All right, that's helpful.
they're in the draft form.
Yep.
And so I think the only people that have got them is Julia, me, and I think that might be it right now.
That's it. I
and-
didn't
and,
send them. I haven't sent them any place.
Right.
Okay.
So, and I did share them with Nick, but I had asked Julia to send, they should go to all the committee members at this point. But maybe Kathleen can update those two that
Yeah.
we looked, and then
Yeah.
we can send them all out so that everyone can look at them.
Rob,
I
in
don't-
terms of timing, are these grant agreements require a co-signature by the grantee?
Yes.
So we should think about that in terms of timing. So is there a deadline when they have to get it back?
Well, they won't get their money until they do.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have a deadline.
But there's not a strict deadline. Yeah, we have a
No.
couple of years to spend the money.
We do. So
I will say that Nick, I think some are chopping at the bit, and so
right.
Nick had emailed me a few days ago, and so I think timing is of the essence, which is good. Like Kathleen's got all the drafts out, so I think it's just a matter of going through it and making sure. We all know lawyers like to take their time, so whether town council can look at it and they take a long time, I don't know.
Well, I don't, yeah, so it's just for your thinking about this, of the 11 that there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are with town boards or committees.
Yeah.
So, and so those 7 ones are all pretty basic. Just to say pretty much that they have to be used for the purposes of the application and not tossed into the town's general funds. And that they have a couple of years to spend it. So those are the sort of the simpler ones. The ones with outside parties, are actually there's 6 that are with the town, and then the other ones, the other 5 are with outside agencies like the Affordable Housing Trust, the Forbes Museum, the Garden Club, and the Friends of Milton Recreation and the Milton Farmers Market, and the Milton American Baseball. So those are the ones with sort of non-town parties. And the rest of them are all with the town. So they're all pretty basic. So I would ask you to sort of really focus on the ones with the Forbes Museum, with the Garden Club, and potentially the Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay. So I think we will need to look at our schedule. So if everyone, I think we should probably do that now in any case. So just so everyone knows, I just popped up a calendar. Today's June 28th, and I'm looking in July now. And just so everyone knows, the applications that we received, I'll go through that. Let me see if I can.
Wendy, is your turn signal on?
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute.
So
Waiting for time bomb to go off.
So those are the ones like the Affordable Housing Trust, Forbes House, the Garden. So the town lockups with the town, Turner's Ponds town, Peverly Playground was that one that was also, that's town too, Kathleen? Okay.
That's a town one, yeah, that's.
Pope's
going to-
Pond is, American Baseball's not. The pickleball courts, I think is town though, right? Oh, these are still town maybe. And then the Upper Giles town too. So that's the recap of these. And then, as I said, we have all the drafts, and Kathleen will send those out. I don't have like the samples, but I also don't want to waste everyone's time going through those. You guys can look at them at a certain point. I'm going to skip over this just for 1 second, then I'll jump back. I want to go over the eligibility applications received, because that's, I think, is the most important. We had received 24 applications. Two were kind of duplicated because of the Pope's Pond. One, it was kind of like trail maintenance, if you will, from a town citizen. So we kind of narrowed that down to being 23 because Ruth withdrew her application. So we're left with 23. Under an initial review by Kathleen, we had deemed for sure that the mobile bandstand was not eligible. And then the East Milton Square flower pots was not eligible. And then we had some questions of maybe these are eligible. So I would kind of err on the side of at least having them present to the board to understand what the projects are about and what their projects potentially could be eligible or not be eligible. For instance, the Milton Arts Center windows, that was a maybe. The Winter Valley Building 6, that is a maybe. However, what I would say, and this is something for the committee to think about, is having all affordable housing projects, should they go through the Affordable Housing Trust, I think maybe is a good thing to do, if that's the way the committee wants to run. Because we kind of already set that up last year by funding through the Affordable Housing Trust. And now we have an application that is before us, which is the Winter Valley Building 6. But it's also a tremendous amount of money, and I don't know what exactly their ask is. And you know, the fact that Milton does have the Affordable Housing Trust, it just seems to me like it would be a good thing for Winter Valley to deal directly with the trust and not the CPC, but it's up for discussion, I think, with the members of this committee and what you guys think. Any discussion on that? I'm looking at you, Tom, because you're on the affordable housing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I think it's the right discussion to have. I think, you know, obviously CPCs around the state, I think, do it both ways. Some direct all requests like that to the trust, and you know, I think that's the value of having the trust. You have housing experts, presumably bankers, and you know, folks like that are that can, when you get a specific proposal on a specific project, you know, like Winter Valley, or you know, then you can dive into the financing and the details and how realistic the funding request is and all that type of stuff that we may or may not have, frankly, time or the right combination of folks to do so. But obviously I think we have the discretion to do it either way, frankly, but that I think is a reasonable option.
Pete, yeah, go ahead.
I agree. I think I agree. I don't know exactly your guys' position, but I think a request for affordable housing projects should go through the trust. We're, you know, funding them at a fairly high level. And if there's specific needs, I think the trust is more in a position to really evaluate what they're doing and negotiate. Certainly something on the magnitude of Winter Valley, you know, we couldn't afford to give them, you know, a real significant amount of money. If they were coming in asking for $100,000, we could conceivably consider it. But I think that our grants to the Affordable Housing Trust are probably the way to deal with all of the affordable housing issues.
Yeah, Cheryl, you were next on the.
I do have a concern that it would remove town meeting from having any consideration of the applications by doing it this way, and put it in a process for housing that's different for historic preservation and open space. So I'm a newbie to the committee, but that's one thing that just strikes me as something that could be questioned. And I will add that Winter Valley did you know, receive approval, site plan approval from the planning board. It did receive a zoning update that allowed for that additional building. And when we did a site walk with Winter Valley, one of the things that came up was that their funding from HUD doesn't allow them to use any of that funds for landscaping. And so they were looking at a shortfall of funds for a buffer to their neighbor, which is a single family residential home. So anyway, I those are my thoughts and concerns.
Yeah, I think one good thing to know about going through Affordable Housing Trust is there's a little bit of security, Cheryl, whereas there's a little bit more hurdles by funding it through this. As you know, it will have to go to town meeting, and then town meeting will have to approve that as a separate project. Whereas like if we release funding directly to the Affordable Housing Trust, the Affordable Housing Trust then has that funds to spend, right? So it wouldn't necessarily have to fall back on town meeting to approve that funding. So that there's kind of two ways to look at that, but you know, it does kind of remove that hurdle, if you will, which sometimes, as we know, affordable housing can be an obstacle, which I think it's valuable when you group it all together on overall, you know, article, but just something to consider, I think, as we go forward. But I think to your point, like I think having all these projects in the queue, and then, you know, it's just one more project that this committee is going to have to take on. And so whether it's Tom as chair, like, listen, when I was chair, I had met a lot of these groups outside of our meetings. And so my worry is, as this goes forward, is there's a lot of applications before this, and the budget, which we'll go over in a second. If you see the total projects, if you look at the CPA funding requested, to Pete's concern, it's close to $3 million, and the total available funding for these projects is just roughly over $1 million. So that's the challenge before the committee. Kathleen, I think your hand was up next, and then Jenny can speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in my experience, there are two ways to do this. You could, and it would address Cheryl's concern about disclosure to town meeting, is that the sort of talks in between Winter Valley and the Affordable Housing Trust and the CPC could be reduced to a vote by the CPC to fund, let us say, for example, $500,000 to the Affordable Housing Trust for the Winter Valley project. So it would appear as a vote on town meeting tied to expenditure related to Winter Valley. So that would be full disclosure of what it was going to be used for. Typically, in my experience of representing Affordable Housing Trust, is that sometimes there is a project that requires demonstration of local support. And so it's not a big ask from the CPC or the Housing Trust. Usually it's not anything more than $500, $500,000 at the most. But most of the times it's been even smaller. But just to sort of show the other lenders that the town is behind the project. And so that, as I said, would be a discrete application, a discrete grant agreement with the Affordable Housing Trust. And then that trust would negotiate whatever it needs to do in terms of like a grant or a mortgage or loan, you know, no interest, no payback kind of loan to Winter Valley. So as I said, you can sort of, it won't be hidden because you won't be just sort of dumping money in the Affordable Housing Trust and no idea where that's supposed to go. You could have a vote at town meeting that would tie it to the Winter Valley project. I hope that helps.
Yeah, so Jenny.
I like that idea a lot, Kathleen, for a couple of different reasons, just so that it earmarks it. And if we alternatively say all applications have to go through the Affordable Housing Trust, does that set a precedent then for a major chunk to go in for each cycle?
I don't think you can legally do it that way.
Well, I know, but I'm just thinking about how it looks and the expectation. So if we say all of the applications are going to go through the Affordable Housing Trust, then presumably it has to have a bucket of money to receive those proposals, right?
Yeah.
So it almost presumes that the CPA is going to recommend a certain percentage almost each cycle that goes into the trust. I'm just saying that it might appear that there is a presumption there.
Yeah, but as I said, we can't really have applications be going to the Affordable Housing Trust directly. Because the statute requires, us to make that determination.
Tom.
So I guess my concern about that would be, at the beginning of this conversation, we were saying it, the and I don't have I don't have a strong opinion on what's the best policy here, but Kathleen, what Kathleen was saying struck my ear as we're substituting our judgment for the trust, and we're really tying the hands of the trust. If we say, here's X amount of money for the Winter Valley project, then the trust pretty much I don't know legally how that works, and
It happens all the time, Tom.
so
we do it-
so it's basically another committee telling the trust how to
Well, but
how to
the
run their
committee is
business.
providing the money for it.
Right.
So it's
Right.
not coming out of your other, it's not coming out of your, if you're having a request all the time for whatever the affordable housing number is every year, it's not coming out of that. It's gonna be an absolute, a separate kind of, appropriation.
but
And
yeah,
that's the
I
way
wanna-
we mostly do it.
I guess I'm not talking about Winter Valley at all here, because I don't know much about the project, and I don't want to say
Right.
I'm in support or not in support of it. It seems like the little I know, it seems like a good project, so taking Winter Valley out of it, hypothetically, a CPC could vote money then to send money to the trust for a project the trust doesn't think is a good project. And the trust has no agency in that. That just doesn't seem right.
Well, it doesn't normally happen that way, Tom.
I know it doesn't normally, but I
yeah.
mean,
Well,
theoretically,
yeah,
that
but
could
you
happen.
can't- Well, unfortunately, you're in a situation where this is Stewart's, argument about affordable housing trust. Stewart's and I've had this fight, argument for years. And he believes that CPCs should tie up the money that goes to an affordable housing trust. And, people in affordable housing trust think they shouldn't. So,
Right.
it's an ongoing discussion, and I think it happens every time that there's a discussion about spending money on affordable housing and
Yep.
what's the best way to handle it.
Okay.
And
I mean, one of the things we could, and I know Cheryl has her hand up, sorry, Cheryl, but one of the things we could potentially do is, as Julie Kramer comes in representing, their requests, the trust's
Mhm.
request,
yeah,
we could have a conversation with her about this and see what
Yeah. And
what her take on it is.
maybe
Yeah.
for now, I may suggest that the Winter Valley, listen to the Winter Valley, have them come and present to you, which seems like to be the right way to go
oh,
about
yeah,
it than
you're
making a
way,
decision.
you're way far away from having any kind of decision about whether or
Right.
not
Right.
this is a good idea or not. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
don't
think
have
we should-
nearly enough information.
Right. Yeah, we don't know. We don't really know. To be honest, all we have is a huge number in Winter Valley. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Cheryl knows way more about the project than any of us do. So that's probably, that's one thing. Cheryl, go. I know you got your hand up.
I haven't seen their application to this committee, obviously, but I do know what they presented to the planning board was it's 100% affordable, age restricted, HUD funded housing, about 30 some units. I forget exactly how many. They all would go towards the subsidized housing inventory. But I still, again, I hopefully I can have a little time to get up to speed on how this has been done in other communities. But I again want to raise my concern about having a different process for one bucket of the funds than the other two buckets. And I just would like to kind of think that through and understand that better. Historic preservation is not having to go through a different filter, which is like the historic commission to see which they think is more viable or more important. Open space doesn't have to go through the Parks Department or Parks Board or others. So I guess that's my initial, and it's not that I have anything against the Affordable Housing Trust and what they're doing, obviously. It's just, I remember actually when Rich was representing the planning board on this committee. He did reach out to me a couple of times, and I know there were questions about not having a specific project with the Affordable Housing Trust. And then, so, how long would funds sit there before they're actually used versus other projects that are going forward on a more rapid basis? And then lastly, I worked with Tom and others, probably of you, who worked to get the CPA passed. And I know one of the things that we were thinking about, at least from planning board and sort of the list of affordable housing, is these funds could be used to buy more affordable units in a market rate development. And I'm just wondering whether that would be discouraged at all if the developers had to go through another process. So they had to go through a two-step process versus a one-step.
So I will, one thing to think about, and so just at least from my experience the last 2 years, Cheryl, is we are very time sensitive. So some of the pluses to having the Affordable Housing Trust is there is no timetable to it. So if a developer went directly to the Affordable Housing Trust, there's one time a year that this can get approved, right? So I just had someone in the last week, by the way, contact me and say, we want to do a project at, elementary schools, right? And I go, well, unfortunately, you have the terrible timing because your project won't even be looked at until 2025 because just because of the timing. And we are so strapped to that Springtown meeting. So it's just, I think all your points are definitely valid. I think it's a good debate, I think, because it's tough because you are strapped to those meetings and you would have to, we only have 3 months of this eligibility application period, and then that 3 months for that funding. And to be honest, I think that's something that the committee should consider in the future. And I don't know, maybe we're strapped to it and that's what it is, but that's kind of a limiting factor on CPA funding, to be honest, is only available 3 months out of the year. And so if a project comes this fall, say, it won't be until 2000, whatever it is, 2025, that they could even be funded. So that's just a limiting factor. Tom.
Yeah, this is a good discussion, and I know we have a lot of other things, but I just want to clarify to Cheryl's comment. It wouldn't be, or at least the way I envision it, wouldn't be a two-step process. It's still a one-step process. They would just go directly to the Affordable Housing Trust. They wouldn't have to come to us. So, and it is, I think you're raising really the right questions, but the statute that allowed municipalities to set up the trust was designed in part because of NIMBY, particular NIMBY reaction to affordable housing and the difficulties of that causes at a town meeting environment. So it's but I think this is a good debate for us to engage in and continue to discuss.
Yeah, and so maybe the best thing I think is to just have it would be like, yes, have them come to the next meeting to find out more, and then the committee can decide at a later time, right? Kathleen, I know you got your hand up.
I just wanted to say briefly that I could take Cheryl out for a cup of coffee or tea and explain the history of the Affordable Housing Trust, because it's my statute. I helped draft it. And it was my idea.
Better than anyone.
I thought it should be a glass of wine rather than a cup of coffee though, Kathleen.
Yeah. But
you can say what was in the coffee.
It's different than the other issues because of the fact that we were charged with the and it's just happened in the newspaper the other day about the fact that CPA funds don't get spent on affordable housing as much as they get spent on open space. And so going to Tom's point, because it is a much harder lift for affordable housing. It's why this Affordable Housing Trust mechanism was developed to ease that up. So we can talk about that offline, but I'll make that
Yeah,
offer.
and then in just the last 2 years, as you can see, I was actually glad to see that Winter Valley applied because we only had the Affordable Housing Trust. But as you can see, the Parks and Rec usually takes up this huge portion, and we keep adding more to it. And then the historic's kind of the second place, and then the housing's kind of the last place. But I think what the committee's done really well in this first kind of the foundation was to establish the 3 buckets and kind of equal them out. I think that was useful. And I mean, it'll be up to the committee to do it going forward. But I think we were pretty equal going through the buckets previously. So I think that was a good way to go about it. So let me just go through the rest of them. There is, so of course, so the Affordable Housing Trust in Winter Valley, those are taken care of. Those are yeses. The Forbes House, which everyone knows about, they came back and asked for more funding. So they were definitely a yes. The town lockup was another project that they're looking to do the second process. There's a new one, which is the Milton Cemetery, which they're looking to do a headstone repair. That's an eligible project, so that's a yes. The Milton Arts Center windows is a maybe, so I would say yes. They should come in to explain their project. The Eustis Estate is new, and then the Blue Hills Observatory have a fence repair that was eligible. And then the rest of what's in green, the open space and recreation, just so everyone knows, the Manning Park, the pergola, is a structure that would happen at the new East Milton Square. It's a big portion. They're asking for a lot of money. But that was in kind of contrast to the mobile bandstand, which the pergola would be more of a permanent structure. So yes, that's eligible. There's a basketball court ask, which is at the Council of Aging. Milton American Baseball project at Andrews Fields for field improvements there. Peverly Playground, which everyone knows about, that's more for an ask for the specific playground now and not the planning. The Pope's Pond pedestrian bridge, I believe that's for the existing bridge, or is that for a new bridge? Maybe
For access to the existing bridge.
it was access to it.
I think like a ramp, like accessibility to, I believe, I just quickly looked at, but accessibility to the bridge.
Okay.
There are 2 projects they're proposing, and
Okay.
I was going
Yeah.
to suggest that they combine them. One is to do an accessibility study for the whole pond to see how they can make it all accessible. And the other thing was to actually do some construction to get people from the main entrance off of Blue Hill Avenue or Blue Hill Parkway and get them down to the new bridge so they can actually go around. So there's 2 pieces to it.
Okay, so and that was from the Concom, right, Pete? So I think both of those applications are from Concom. So those are eligible and they should come, and you guys can speak to them in more detail, Pete, when they get to before the board to talk through those. Kelly Field, that's for dugouts at 2 fields there. And then there's an open space restriction, which I think was also a Concom ask. I don't really know too much about that, Pete. Maybe you do, maybe you know more. I don't know. But it's obviously eligible and they should come before the board. Brook Walk study is for a planning study that's eligible. And then the interesting one was the Brook Stadium upgrades, which was a maybe. I know you had on there, Kathleen, maybe some parts of that project could be funded, but other parts couldn't be funded, which I think you just need to talk to them and kind of understand what they're looking for there. The estuary, I think, Kathleen, you know about that, I'm pretty sure, which is more in East Milton. And is over on that side of the town, but that's obviously eligible. Andrews Park Water Station, I think you had as a maybe, and so I would say yes, and have them come before us. And then the last one was the Glover Outdoor Classroom. So add all these up, I had 2 automatically that we should take off, and I think we should Julia send out basically new an email that just says those two are not eligible. The rest are eligible. So I think whatever, it's 21, I think. So let's say there's 21 applicants that need to come before this board, and it needs to happen like hopefully before August. So that's when I go to my calendar and say, we're on the 28th today. And our normal nights are Wednesdays. And so we need to start scheduling some of these presentations. And so if there's 3, and if you guys think it can happen where 7 go a night, and if they're 20, let's say 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes for each applicant to present, that's still, 2.5 hours or so worth of meetings, but I think it can be done in 3 meetings. I don't know how you guys feel. But I think you're going to need at least 3 meetings to have them, and then have the applicants. Like if we scheduled, just said 5th, 12th, 19th, or even the 26th, throw it out there. Any of those 4 Wednesdays, but it's up for discussion with the committees. When do you guys think this should be? I know it's obviously a bad time. Summer's a hard time for everyone's schedule and whatnot. But we could also do, you guys could also just do Zoom meetings like this. And if anyone's on vacation, or if there's recordings, as long as you have a quorum, you should be good. But I don't know, up for discussion. How does everyone feel?
Pete had his hand up earlier.
Pete.
I know last year we invited everybody in to present, anybody whose project was theoretically eligible. I don't know whether we're obligated to do that, or if we can make some judgments about feasibility or whatever, because we've got to cut down, the requests so much. We certainly aren't going to be able to fund all these projects. And I don't know if in our process, we are obligated to anyone which is eligible, to give them the opportunity to come in, or can we tell them some that, it's not the right time, or with fun, make decisions on some of them now.
Yeah, I will say, I will err on the fact that really trying to be equal across the board, right? And I know maybe some of these are repeat applicants, so potentially, Pete, maybe some of them that have already come before us, maybe not, right? But I would err on the fact of giving people the benefit of the doubt. They filled out this application, and personally, I feel like they deserve the 15 minutes to come before the committee to have the presentation. But obviously, it's up to the discussion between the committee to have.
And while I've got the floor, I think the other thing that we should discuss and think about is projects that were funded last year. They're coming in for a second round before they've demonstrated any progress or anything like that. Again, that's a big chunk of what we have as available funding. Would the committee, think that they've got to demonstrate some progress toward, I know they don't have the money yet, but should we accept a second application before they even begin the first one? So I think those are 2 things that the committee should discuss or could discuss.
Jenny, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, those are good points, Pete. I don't know what to say. I do err on sort of equity for all in terms of at least listening to who they are. My point was that 3 meetings will allow us to hear from everybody. It doesn't allow us to discuss them. So in reality, do we need a 4th meeting then to talk about which ones we're going to invite back for full application or not? And with a reminder that the full applications are due the end of August.
Yeah, I think Kathleen, I don't know if you were next or Tom, but I think Kathleen, you might be next.
I just wanted to say that, there's no legal requirement to have, public hearings and presentations from all the from all the applications. They all have to be a matter of public record. And they can all be discussed. So there are some of them that you could just say, like I think things that are the second phase of a project that we've already said we were going to support, like the Forbes Museum or Peverly Park or something like that. I don't think it's really necessary to see them at this point. We would want to see them then sort of when they do the ask and try to say what kind of money we're going to have available for that, the hard ask. I think we already know what the projects are. So it's the ones I think that we need to flesh out that are the maybes, that we're not sure that the windows will qualify for the art center. Those people really need to come in and talk to us. The issues I had with the other ones like Andrews and the backs, some of this starts to look like doing maintenance on property that wasn't acquired with CPA funds, and those are not permitted. So we really need to sort of flesh out the questionable ones. I think the ones that are slam dunks, I don't think you'd bother having them talk to you the first time around, but have them come in for the second.
Yeah, I think this is just something to think about, I think, is you raise a good point, Pete, about, for instance, and I can name them off. Forbes House, for instance, we've already funded that project. We know that there's a second phase of it. I don't think they need to come back before us again. I think it would be a response to them with like, listen, you don't have to come before eligibility thing again, but it would be good to have a update on your project by like when funding would happen or whatever. So then you can make a determination. And who else falls in that category, for instance, is Peverly Playgrounds, another one.
The town
And
lockup.
town lockup too. So I think there's three potentially that I think those three could get knocked off. Even the Affordable Housing Trust, to be honest, I think it may be too early, but it's possible. And Tom, maybe you know more, like maybe you could provide an update. I know, obviously I know what's going on and, what some of the planning is for the town farm and stuff. So I think it's still worth having the Affordable Housing Trust come before the committee to explain kind of where the process is. It's helpful and it's only 15 or 20 minutes. But
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the other value of having, I mean, I think people are raising some really good points about trying to winnow it a little bit at this eligibility stage. But I also want to just remind all of us that I think the meetings at the eligibility stage last time were really productive in terms of shaping the project. Like we Kathleen might yell at me for using that word, but we were able to influence some of the applicants to that either they weren't ready or the project as presented wasn't ready, or the project would be best turned back into a study, or I mean, there were several projects where the request amount and in some cases what the request for changed substantially, and that was as a result of the feedback they got, I think, from this committee at the eligibility stage. So I wouldn't want to just start narrowing the list for the sake of workload as much as, even though I'm sensitive to that, but because I think sometimes you don't know what you're gonna in a Q&A type thing. Sometimes you just don't know what you're gonna hear and how that might influence us. The other obvious thing is obviously we have the request is for a lot more than money than we have, but there's two ways to get there. One is to lop off projects, right, that we say no to. The other way is to reduce the amount asked for, so theoretically we could fund all 21 projects, but at a lower amount, or some maybe at full amounts and some at partial amounts. So, so there's a number of ways to get to the bottom line.
Yeah, I think, Tom, to your point, like last year, if we went back a year and looked at the eligibility funding requested, it probably isn't that different than what this requested this year. But because of all those meetings that we had, we got it down and, you know, it came very close to our budget. So I think they're well worth the meetings to have. But to Pete's point, I think maybe those 3 projects, you know, you got to get there, and you got 20, whatever it is, 20 some odd applicants this time. And so something that for the committee to think about, which projects you've already supported them one round. Do you support them the second round, or do you tell them, by the way, we've supported you this round, should you wait a year or whatever too? I mean, there's many different ways to get there, but that's going to be up to the committee to decide. Jenny, you have your hand up.
Well, it's just reaffirming that, Rob, what you just said is that the third option, Tom, is to defer several projects and just say, we've got too much on the board right now. There's no way we can fund you at your requested amount. Would you mind?
So it's not
deferring?
no of
Not a
hard
no, it's just a deferral.
It's
It's not a yes either. It's sort of
come
a
back next
deferral.
year.
Yeah.
come back next year.
But to Pete's point, I think what's really helpful is some of these, and it's because of the timing again, they're not getting funded until this July. So of course they can't
Right.
do any of the planning or whatever that they need. So it would also be a shame for some projects, and I'll mention one, that Peverly Playground, that if it has to wait for 2 years to go through, you know, that may be, you know, that may be too bad. That some of these have to wait a long time too, and it's just because of the timing. So, but it would be helpful, I think, if they didn't have to come before the eligibility, or maybe they just did provide an update. And when funding happens, they can come before us and they maybe have a full plan or whatever. So,
Rob, I unfortunately have a hard stop at 4:15.
Yeah.
And so are we trying to schedule?
yeah, I think we should, I think
now?
let's look at, so Jenny, I agree with you. I think perhaps we should do 4, you should schedule 4 meetings. What 3, I think, is inevitable. Even if you knock off 3, you're still going to have 3 nights of presentations with potentially another one. So is it possible to do that every Wednesday or not? Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Can I just raise another possibility?
Yeah.
Is it possible, we've got 9 people, if we had 3 subcommittees and divide these up, and then the subcommittees, you know, look through all these and make recommendations to the full committee so that we don't have such an overwhelming load?
That makes sense.
Linda, you have your hand up.
Well, 2 things. I disagree with Pete. I think that would be difficult when it comes to actually deciding on the funding, and perhaps we would have to then change the way that we go about the decisions about the final decisions about funding. But the other point I wanted to raise was that perhaps for some of these, for example, the Forbes House Museum and the town lockup, we could make it completely optional and just get back to them and say, if you would like to make another presentation, fine, but we don't necessarily feel that it's necessary. So we leave it in their hands rather than make a decision for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is up to the committee, but I don't think you're gonna see anything new with the Forbes House or the town lockup. It's the same project. I would just cut them personally. There's going to be nothing new because they haven't even been funded yet to do planning or anything on it. And so I think the Forbes House, the town lockup, as well as Peverly Playground, I would just say, listen, let's wait, hold it until you do your funding. That would help immensely. Then you'll have down to 20 projects to get those.
I would still suggest that we offer them the opportunity and say, basically, we think it's not necessary, but if you do, then it would be possible for you to have a time slot and bring us up to date on whatever the new proposal is that you're looking for funding for.
Okay. I guess what I'm looking for. So Julia, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just going back to the scheduling, the doodle poll, people responded favorably for July 6th. as a meeting time. We also have July 19th scheduled. I don't know if the 6th still works for people, or if we want to squeeze in another one between the 6th and the 19th.
I think you're gonna have to. So is there? So the week of the 10th through the 14th, what works for everybody? So we'll commit to the 6th, the 19th, and then we need to find 2 more dates. So what is the best date for the 10th to the 14th? I don't know if you guys want to commit to a date on here. I think it would be good to. And then one the following week. And if you guys can't make it, we could also record it and you can share it as long as you had enough people for a quorum. I think that's all you need.
Well,
So
to put something on the board, I'd recommend the 13th, July 13th, just to throw something up there, see if it sticks.
does that work for everybody? The 13th? Or it might not work for Cheryl, right? Because
No,
of-
that's a planning board meeting
Planning
night.
board, yeah.
that's why I think also Wednesdays.
Wednesday, yeah. Why don't we do
The 12th.
each Wednesday for the next month and just get it out of the way?
The 5th, 12th, the 19th, and the 26th. And if you can't make those dates, does anyone have problems with those dates now?
I
Are you-
do, unfortunately.
Are
For the
you,
5th and the 12th.
Are some of these, is it going to be possible to do these via Zoom?
Yeah, I think they should all be Zoom.
Okay,
I think we should do Zoom and, let me just clarify. So, I mean, I know we've been meeting on Wednesdays, but Julia said that there was the 6th was a popular time, but Cheryl, do you have a meeting on the 6th?
No, we meet on the 2nd and 4th
Okay.
Thursdays, pretty much,
Okay,
unless
all right,
something
okay.
comes up.
So yeah, want
So
to
the
keep the
6th,
6th,
can we
keep the 6th.
Keep the 6th, the 12th, the 19th, and 26th. Wendy, you were saying which of those?
Actually, the first 3 weeks of July are impossible for me.
Okay,
I will be sailing until the 15th. But I think the 12th or 13th, if we're, depending upon those dates, if we're just doing nothing except sailing from one place to the next, I could phone in. The 6th, I think I've got an event that night, but. And then the rest of the month, the 19th and those rest of the month is fine.
All right, so we'll do the 6th.
Rob, can I just throw a crazy idea out there? You know, July is just, everyone is gonna have conflicts. Does it make sense to try to do this all in one week and just do 4 back-to-back days? I mean, it
I
would
don't
never,
know.
we are never gonna commit, so there's always gonna be conflicts. Everybody's week is gonna have, somebody's gonna be, or two people got.
Yeah, I mean, I
Do it Monday through
now,
Thursday.
now you know why I'm stepping down, Ted.
Yeah, right.
I
Oh, we
mean,
need it.
I'm not gonna be shy and let you know, I'm super busy just as much as you guys are, and I can see the, I don't know, it's an issue.
But we need a quorum. We don't need a
oh, we
100%
need a quorum,
attendance
right? We need a quorum for each night. So let's
So-
each night,
let's just.
so
if
These
we-
presenters, we're gonna ask these presenters to do this through Zoom?
I think you can, and I think you'll be able to. Personally, I mean, look, I mean, everyone showed up today through Zoom, so I think you'll get more participation for people to do it. It may be tough, but I don't know. I think you try the best to make those dates, and I think if you, Ted, I think if you give these people too, if you did 4 nights in a row, you might have an issue having someone be out that week, and at least you're giving them flexibility to get these
Yeah.
time slots, right? But I think as long as you have a quorum, you guys can catch up with each other, and I think that's going to be the way to do it.
I think we may have more success if we have these afternoon meetings by Zoom. I think where we ran into trouble last week was that it's a, summer evening that stays light until 8:30 and it was in person. So maybe we would have better attendance if we were able to continue with the afternoon time slot. I don't know, however, if that's going to make it harder for our guests to come to the meeting.
I think it's, I don't know, it is tough. I think this is really hard. July and August to have these meetings are super hard. It is, it's gonna be hard because people are on vacation and whatever else. So I don't have an answer, but I don't, Julia, you have your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I meant to put it down.
Okay, so are we gonna commit? I know Tom's gotta leave really soon. Are we gonna commit to those dates and then whoever shows,
Yeah,
whoever shows up, we got it. So it's the 6th, the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th.
We could make, Rob, one of those, I mean, to Wendy's point, make one of them during the day. So.
Well,
and we-
for instance, your last week, the 24th or the 28th, if everyone is available during the day to have a committee meeting, that could help. Does that help you?
It does help me.
Does it help everyone else? Could everyone else commit to like a daytime meeting on that week? The 26th?
Yeah.
So do you want to say the 26th at 3 o'clock? Does that work for everyone? And then the rest will be the 12th, the 19th, and the 6th will be a 7 o'clock. And it will be, I think they're better just make them all remote, Tom. What do you think? Like, just make them all remote, because if you have an some hybrid, I don't think the hybrid really works very well.
No, I think we should do remote for July. I'm also wondering whether we should make one of the meetings for the applicants during the day.
Too. Yeah.
Just one of the 3 options to give that. So maybe
the 12th, maybe, or either one of those.
6th and 19th in the evening, and the 12th during the day might be
a good option.
Yeah, because presumably some applicants can do it during the day, and that might be a good option to take some.
I can't. Do that.
I think that's, you can't do the 12th.
There's always going to be conflict.
Well,
Yeah, there's always going to be conflicts.
It doesn't have to be the 12th. It could be the 19th or the 6th too, but.
We're really gonna have to stick to like a 20-minute or 15, like really hard. And I think we should also limit the questions.
I agree.
Zoom meetings tend to go longer, and it will be, it's, if we do 7 applicants at a 7 o'clock meeting, like it could.
No, I'm thinking of telling the applicants they have 5 minutes.
Yeah, and limit our questions.
Yeah,
we have to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Ted. I think we need to. My professional experience is Zoom meetings are shorter, actually, but not my Milton experience.
All right, so we're running out of time, so let's do. This is where we're going to confirm. The 6th is going to be a night meeting. 12th will be at 3 o'clock, 19th is at 7 o'clock, and 26th is at 3 o'clock, and they'll all be via Zoom. Julia set that up, sent it to you guys. And then Julia's got a lot of work, which leads me into my last point for this meeting is, I did a lot of work on this committee, as you know.
Go, bye.
All right, bye, Tom. I did a lot of work on this committee, as you guys know. And now that Tom's gone, Julia will be doing a lot more work on this committee. I just so everyone knows, I did all the presentations, everything. I think that's going to land in Julia's court now at this point, where she's doing a lot of the presentations for this meeting, a lot of prep work. There's a lot of just emails and such. There's a lot more applicants this year. So her workload's going to increase substantially. And so just so everyone knows, just to review again, her stipend for last year was $3,600 a year. And it was $138.46 biweekly. I'm suggesting to double her stipend. So that means she has double the hours. I think it's reasonable, knowing how much work I put into this committee and knowing how much work she's going to have to do. I think she's going to have to do a lot of lifting with that. So any discussion on that point?
How many hours was she putting in, Rob?
So I think it's best to ask Julia that question.
Okay, Julia.
Yeah, it just varies,
Right.
like during the busy season, it was maybe 20 hours, and then there was nothing for a week, and then, it just, and
Okay.
now it's really hard. I'm sorry, I was supposed to come up with some kind of report, but it's really, I don't know how to, what to expect with Rob being gone.
Right,
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so, you know, just so everyone knows too, like our admin funds are whatever it is, $50,000 a year. So we're not talking a huge stress on that. And I do think
Right.
there's going to be a huge stress on Julia. I think that she's going to be doing a lot of lifting. And I know Pete and Jenny did a lot of work with me on it, but I did, there was a lot to prepare for these people to, just a lot of correspondence. It's going to fall on Julia. And I know just even scheduling this for 4 meetings, you can imagine the work to try to line up all these applicants and doodle polls or whatever that it is. There's going to be a lot of work here. And so I don't think it's a huge ask. But
May I suggest that maybe instead of providing Julia with a set amount each week, that we do it the other way around, in that Julia provides us with an invoice of the amount of time that she spent and we pay her accordingly?
I think the bigger issue with that, Wendy, is like a town accounting thing. So we were asked to do it this way, which I agree with you. It would make sense to do it the other way. But I will tell you, I think it pales in comparison, probably the 3,600 that she made last year. I just don't see it as a match to what her workload is this year. So I think Julia would be valuable to keep this committee up to date with your hours and such, and have a review sooner, right? Like, so that you can see if that stipend works for you in the months ahead. But unfortunately, that's how the town could do it, Wendy, is like they have to have a set amount that they pay her as a stipend. They couldn't do like an invoice or whatever because she's a town employee.
Oh,
And Julia, are you okay with the foreseen increased workload?
I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Well, you do
No,
have a
it's-
choice.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Writing letters though, I'm not sure if those letters inviting people to present should come from me, or they should come from the chair. I mean, I'm happy to write them, but I wouldn't feel comfortable signing Tom's name to a letter without.
Well, no, and I don't know that you should. I think if you wrote them, Tom signed them, would be good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and I think that's where it's gonna, I think the bulk of the work that I did was prepare for things like, preparing budgets, which Pete can prepare the budgets. He's done that before, putting them into presentations, and kind of the agendas and all that stuff, I think is just gonna have to get put into things. And so everyone's going to have to do a little bit of lifting, but Julie is going to probably do the most lifting if I had to guess.
Yeah, if you guys want to put something on the agenda, just email me and I'll put the agenda together, but it has to be posted 48 hours in advance.
Well, and I think, to be honest, like Julia, that's why I also wanted to reorganize the board, so that if Tom, I would hope that you would work with Tom. Tom, being chair, will hopefully step up and give you the agenda, right? We'll give you the agenda points and work with you. But I think he's going to heavily lean on you. Whereas I leaned on you, but in capacity, right?
Not that much. You did most of it.
Yeah, Rob, I'd like to make I guess an amendment to yours. I would suggest an increase to $10,000 a year, because I'm figuring that there's going to be, even if you put in 400 hours, Julia, that's $25 an hour, which is really low in my mind, for the kind of work that you're doing. And my guess is that over the next year, I mean, even looking at the next month, you're going to be putting in 10 hours a week. I mean, I can't see how you're not going to be attending all the meetings and minutes and whatnot. So I would propose a 10,000, and you keep track of your hours, and let us know.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, I have no, I just threw it out there and I said at least should be double. I think
Mhm.
I have no problem with that, obviously, but that's up to the committee for the discussion. I do think there needs to be a little bit better tracking of it, Julia. And I would definitely keep track of it. I definitely think you will be having a lot of work ahead. But Pete, go ahead.
I think I would prefer to, at this point, keep it to your Rob's proposal is 7,200. And then, when we get a few months down the road or something, if we find that it's an unreasonable burden, we can increase it again. But, I imagine that there's going to be committee members who step up and do some of this stuff. I expect to. So, and Tom will pick up some of the load. So I think a doubling is a reasonable proposal.
Yeah. And is there any other discussion around the two proposals?
I would say if we're gonna double, then I would really ask Julia to monitor, let's have an agreement on what a reasonable hourly rate is then, and then review it after 6 months.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. So Jenny, I think as you go forward, I would definitely talk with the town to understand what their hourly rates are. I think they set it, like what their HR is. They kind of set the preferred rate. But for me, it's more like tracking time, like making sure that Julia's not getting paid $10 an hour for her work, right? Because then I see that as a huge issue. Cheryl, you have your hand up.
Yes, I know Julia has other responsibilities and commitments to other boards and committees, and I don't think it's a reasonable expectation to ask her to work beyond the normal work hours that her job would entail. So I just wanted to see, she said she would have no other choice. I think she does have a choice in, like Pete says, if committee members need to pick up more, then I think we need to know that, and committee members will need to, I don't think it's reasonable to ask for, I know, for example, she staffs the planning board meetings, so she is attending those meetings at night. And she probably has to attend these meetings at night. So that's a lot of work hours. So I guess I just want to make sure we're not asking her to overcommit.
I work part-time at the planning department, so afternoons are dedicated to CPC stuff, so I do have time in the afternoon.
I guess my one question to you now, Julia, I don't know the $138.46 and the $3,600 a year. What did that allot for? Was it like a 5 hours a week, or do you know what that turned out to be? See, that's the thing I don't know about. I'm guessing it's something like that. So that's why I suggested doubling it. If it was 10 hours a week, is that something that's reasonable?
Yeah. Yes. Like I said, it's sometimes 10 hours a week, sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 0. So it's really hard to gauge. But
And I think like July is going to be probably a lot more workload than August or whatever, a couple times a year it's going to pop up and you're going to be super busy.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
I just want to support the notion that a good way to proceed might be to review after 3, 4, or at the latest 6 months, and Julia can then look back at a reasonable time frame, and we can meet with her at that point, realizing that we've gone through some intense periods, but some periods that are not so intense, but perhaps it begins to look like a reasonable assessment of how to go forward. But what I do want to emphasize is the notion that we build into this a set review time, whether we want 3 months or 6 months, and that at that point we can hopefully raise the amount that we're paying Julia.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's a reasonable request to do. Why don't we just say 3 months, right? Is
3 months?
September. And then if everyone's okay with that, I think it makes sense to go with the doubling, the 7,200, and then look at it after 3 months. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it also, I mean, I would like, I guess, more information on the hourly rate, what the town is doing, just to have some comparables or something.
Yeah,
Because that's what it gets down to, really. I mean, it's not only. Yeah,
right. And this is where, yeah, I'm thinking right now, I'm just guessing that it's 5 hours a week, Jenny, and it's $27.69. That would be my guess, right? And that's why I think it's doubling that or whatever. And I think that's set by the town. I'm pretty sure. I don't think like the committee can can set the price increases and stuff, but that's my own, yeah. But we can increase the workload and increase hours and all that.
You want a motion on it, Rob?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we increase the annual stipend for our secretary, for lack of better terminology, to $7,200 a year with the review within the next 3 months.
Second,
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry,
Aye.
who was the seconder on that?
Who's the
Pete.
what?
I think it was Pete.
Pete. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. All right, so that was all the important points, I believe.
All right.
I think we have our schedule and everything else. And like I said, it's been a pleasure for me to the last 2 years. I've enjoyed working with everybody and definitely keep in touch. And if you guys ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I've enjoyed the time that I've had the last 2 years.
Rob, you
Rob,
were a
Rob,
hero.
There you go. We wouldn't be where we are without.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
All
Thank you,
right,
Rob.
thanks, guys.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you later.
Rob.
Thank you,
move we
Rob.
adjourn.
Bye.
We need a motion to
welcome.
adjourn.
Oh yeah, we do need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All
Second.
right,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, bye, guys.
We will-